In this video, I'm going to be breaking down our promotional video called Fade to Black. It's the $30 million story about how I personally went from being completely broke to creating a multi-million-dollar business. Now, this story is a really important story to me personally, but I want to be kind of diving into this story today, the documentary in itself, to kind of explain the concept behind it and some of the key scenes in this story. What you're going to be hopefully gaining from this is not necessarily how do you shoot a video that looks like this, but more about how we tell the story to create a really engaging and compelling piece of video content. Look, the big thing to get across here is it's not about how a video looks, it's about the story you tell. And whether you're shooting with a phone or an $80,000 camera, it's not about what gear you're using, it's about how you structure a video and tell the story to make it compelling and hyper persuasive. My name is Xoto. I'm one of the co-founders of Viddyoze. Before we jump in today, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit like, and make sure you go and tell other people about this video and about the Viddyoze YouTube channel. So look, we're gonna be kind of going over this documentary today. And what I wanna kind of give you first off is a little bit of backstory. So essentially, we created a course a couple of years ago called Fade to Black. It's a course on how to create really great video content. We cover all kinds of concepts like lighting and different types of post-production techniques, writing scripts and things like that. And this is pretty much my background. You know, I started in video a very, very long time ago. I was a kid pretty much when I started holding and handling cameras. And I've gone through lots of different phases of shooting different types of content. So I wanted to put this course together for our audience a couple of years ago. And a part of the promotional campaign for this course, we created a documentary, or what I like calling kind of like a docu-sales video. It's not really necessarily just a documentary. It was a piece of content that we used to market the course and also kind of market myself and the brand at Viddyoze to really get people kind of influenced by the message to go and actually buy the course. So whilst when you watch the video, it kind of looks like this really cool emotional story, it is, but the goal of the video was to make sales, right? And this is kind of like an underlying lesson in that any type of video content you create, you should always have the outcome in mind. What is it you're trying to achieve with that piece of content? Do you want to drive sales? Do you want to get more followers? Do you want to sell more of your thing from your shop? What is it, right? And as soon as you can figure that out, you can start crafting your material and your video content in a lot more detail and target it in a way that actually gets results for you. All right, looking in that direction, is that cool?
Yeah, if you just give it a clap.
I'll do one uniform clap, because that might have been a bit confusing. All right, so it was 2012, around about October time, where I lost my job, I got fired. And basically, shit had pretty much hit the fan because I had a whole load of debt, a lot of bills to pay, and yeah, I had about 5 or 6 months to pretty much find some kind of resolution to get myself out of the hole. So starting off, the type of kind of shot that you're gonna see as soon as you start the video is basically just me, not really dissimilar to what you see now. I'm just sat in a chair. It was in a Airbnb that we basically hired out during the time when we done the shoot. And it was just a nice kind of dingy room, really dark, which is really ideal when you're gonna be doing kind of like a cinematic thing. Is having it dark is nice because you can control the light, you can create a lot of drama if you position the lights a certain way. So having it dim lit is quite nice to be able to have that control. So that's why we shot where we shot. And in terms of like the equipment and stuff, we shot with a pretty expensive camera, really. But again, like as I said at the start of this video, it's not necessarily about what camera you use. The video would have been just as effective had we had shot it with lower quality gear. It's just stuff that we use in our business. You know, I'm a video person, so like I've got a passion for the technology. So, you know, we've gone and brought lots of expensive stuff here, but do we need to? Not necessarily. If you're a local small business or you're just starting out and you're just trying to get into video for the first time, you don't want to be worrying about buying, you know, thousands of dollars worth of equipment or thousands of pounds worth of equipment. You just want to kind of focus on the message. If I would change anything about it, not really. I don't think I'd change anything. I think the scene was nice. I think it came across really authentic, and I think I'd probably keep it as it is.
I've always wanted to work for myself. Like, my dad is a self-employed business owner. He moved to the country pretty much in his late 20s or something like that. He couldn't speak a word of English. He had literally no money, and then pretty much learned to speak English and built up a business. And the day I was born, my dad was already like flying. So I was like, that's what I want to do.
If there's one thing I could change, is that last picture. I look like I'm on steroids. When I look back at that scene, I think everything about it is pretty spot on from a storytelling perspective. It's a very personal story, and the reason that we use personal stories in promotional messaging is because everyone relates with a personal story. What's really interesting about stories, right, is when you tell your own story, your audience makes it about themselves, because naturally the way that the human brain works is that when we hear someone else's story, you basically make it about you. So if I said to you now, for example, when I was a kid, my dad would basically, come home from work. He'd come in late in the evening, but he'd always find time to kind of, have a bit of a rough play with me. He'd throw me around, and I'd remember when I'd feel his hands would all be really quite rough because he was a builder. So he'd kind of like, grab me, pick me up, throw me around, and whatever. And I just remember the feeling of the texture of his hands. As I tell you that story, what's happening here is you're kind of thinking about your own dad. You're thinking about when your dad would come home from work, and you're thinking about what your dad's hands actually feel like when it'd grab you and like throw you around. This is basically how the human mind works. So when we tell stories, even though you're visualizing my story, you're kind of making it about your story. And that's why we use things like that. That's why we use story to kind of drive that type of emotion in a video. When you're telling any kind of story or any kind of messaging in a video, it's always nice to use some kind of B-roll or supplementary footage if you can, that just kind of emphasizes the story. So I call it, when I talk about this in my courses and in my training, I call it like the ABC rule. It's like apples, bananas, and carrots. So if I'm sitting here and I'm telling you about apples and bananas, I would go and get supplementary footage of apples and bananas or carrots or whichever thing I'm talking about. That's the philosophy behind the way we select footage. You want to try and find stuff that's relevant. Now, obviously, I don't have a lot of footage of my dad and me when I was a kid because I had no idea I was going to make this video, so we didn't have the footage. But we've got pictures and things like that. So what we did was we said, look, we'll pop around to my parents' house and we'll just whip a photo album out. So what that does is it allows me to show that part of the story in a different way. It's still just as effective, and in a way, the photo album makes it feel really old and like classic and that kind of thing. So it looks really nice. So that's why we use kind of like the photos. And then when we show the footage of my mum in slow motion, it just creates a connection, because when you look at the photos in the photo album, you can see my mum's really young. But then when you look at her looking at the photo album, she's obviously looking a bit older. She's wearing an Asda uniform. For anybody that doesn't know Asda, it's a superstore in the UK. We didn't frame her to wear the Asda uniform, she was just wearing it. But what it shows is that it shows regularity and commonality between you and your viewer. So she is just a normal person. She's not anything different to what your mum probably is like, or other people's mums are probably like. The slow motion just adds to that dramatic effect. Like, if you listen to the music, it's quite sombering and it's slow and dramatic and emotional. So if you had really fast kind of movement with that music, it just wouldn't really feel the same or look the same. The story's old, the story's emotional, so you want to use slow footage to kind of, it's almost like massage the scene or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of thing.
I don't know. I think that's a bit dodgy, mate.
So yeah, I wouldn't change anything about it. I think the scene's nice. If I could have thrown in any like real footage, like of old videotapes and things like that, that would be cool. But we didn't really have much much of that kind of content, unfortunately. So another thing we do in this video is similar to some of the other stuff that I've done. We use alternating characters and alternating story points. So when I'm talking about a story, I'll take it to this bit here. In fact, I'll kind of play it.
I started getting into making like these little short movies. I had a very cheap DSLR camera, and I started creating these movies with my best friend Jay.
Can you give me a visual clap, nice and loud?
Bam!
Perfect.
what I'm doing here is just introducing a character. I see this a lot with people that create content, like, you know, when they're talking about people, they don't introduce the person. It's just a really nice, subtle way to build a story from your video. Like sometimes when you introduce someone or talk about something, creating a story of the thing is a really effective way to turn it into like a journey. So let's say I wanted to talk to you about a book on that table, for example. If I just said that book, I love reading that book, Influence, it's a great book, that's okay. You can go and cut to the book, right? But if I was saying, there was a great book that I read once when I was 18 years old, it's one of the most important books I've read, and it's written by so-and-so, I think it's Robert Cialdini, is it? Yeah, Cialdini? Yeah, it's Robert Cialdini, or however you say it. And then as I'm saying it, you then kind of introduce the book from afar, you might be able to see it, then it cuts into like a slow-mo of the book, kind of close up, maybe me reading the book and it's me fanning through the book. Then all of a sudden what you've then got is you've got steps of me telling that story. So we're introducing the book, then we're close to the book, then I'm reading through the book. That's kind of the same concept that we've got here, is we're introducing a character into the story. So this is what I mean by alternating viewpoints. So I'm telling my version of the story, how I met Jay, and then Jay's telling his version of the story of how he kind of met me. And you'll see kind of how we bounce back and forth. And this kind of back and forth is repeated a few times when I introduced Alex as well.
And it's kind of just weird how we fell out of touch, and then all of a sudden when this really important moment was about to take place, he just kind of like appeared and he was just there, which kind of lined up really well for what was going to happen next, basically.
So this is cool. Like what I basically did here was I said what was going to happen next. And the thing is, when you're making a video normally, like it's really quite easy to get into this pattern of just like starting your video and talking all the way to the very end and just stopping without creating breaks for the viewer. And this is a 40-minute video, so it's essential to create some breaks and some journeys for the viewer. So what I did here was I said, so what happens next? And then we create a break point where there is no content. It's just basically Jay, my mate, dancing in his living room like an idiot. And basically it's just a bit of music just to break up the scene. So all that does is it just gives the viewer a bit of breathing space, a bit of room in the story just to kind of say, okay, cool, so that was Jay. I know who Jay is. I'm showing Jay in a different context from what we just saw him in, and it kind of then moves on from the story.
So I basically just sent him a message on Facebook, just said, hey, you know, kind of like introduced myself and whatever, and he basically just ignored me.
Just you record, don't worry. I'll just shoot as many times as you need, but like, just tell me. Yeah, press the button. What's up, dude?
Not much right now.
How you?
I'm take number 4, I think.
Take number 4, doesn't matter, bro.
Get this one done.
Doesn't matter.
One thing that we done quite frequently here is when we're introducing characters, we had a pattern of how we were doing it. So if you look at any of the introductions we do, David, Jamie, Jay, and Alex, they're all introduced in this really similar way, kind of showing the name come up and it's like typed out. And there's just this really casual bit before they start speaking. So Alex's casual bit was quite good. There was one with Jay. I don't know if we did it with David and Jamie because it was later in the story, and there was a reason for that. I won't get into that now. It's about pacing, you know, like when we introduce David and Jamie, it's much further in the story, and that part of the story is being paced quite fast because there's a build up and there's a lot of emotion and lots of things happening. Whereas at the start, it's more steady, and you know, we're giving our viewer time to kind of learn who the person is. It's a really cool bit in the video. It's probably my favorite bit in the whole thing, just because it's got everything. It's got like suspense because we've now introduced the guy. He's sat there. He says, I'm ready, but you don't hear from him. You don't get to hear what he's actually got to say, and you don't know what happens in the story yet. So we know that there's something happens because he's sat down now. We're going to interview him, but we don't know yet. Like, so there's like this suspense. A really good kind of concept to learn about is the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is like a really classic structure of a story. It's a story structure that gets used in all kinds of films, books, and any good story is basically structured around this concept of the hero journey. And the hero journey always is like when you have that kind of underdog character, which in this film particularly would be me, and then they have the teacher or the Jedi or you know whatever it is who kind of like shows them the way. There's so many movies that have this, right? Like Bloodsport, any martial arts movie or any movie with an underdog basically follows that structure. So that's what we're doing here. That's the structure that's kind of being used, is that we're showing the Jedi, but we're not giving all the we're keeping the powder dry, as we say here all the time. We're not giving the full story yet. And that's the trick really in storytelling, is like you don't have to give the full story right away. Like the viewer needs to be on the edge of their seat, and that part of the story is a really great example of how that's done. I think, that's probably it. I hope you kind of enjoyed hearing about some of my thoughts on kind of this video. And obviously, there's so much more I can go into with this, and there's a lot of detail that I've missed out there. So if you want to learn more about the real intricacy of how this video was created, but not just this one, but how you can go and create a video just like this and kind of tell a story that's just as compelling for your business or your small business or brand, then I really recommend you go and check out Fade to Black. It's a course that I created, as you know, a couple of years ago. This is the video that basically sold the course. So what you could do is go and check the video out and then go buy the course, which I'd really recommend. But yeah, go over to the description section in this video. You'll see some calls to action there on where you can go and buy these things and whatever. So that's it. Look, if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share it with a friend or with a colleague that you think might find this kind of analysis of video interesting. Share it with your marketing team. Maybe it will give them some ideas on how they can go and create their content. So that's it for this one. My name is Joey, and we'll see you in the next video.